Very distinguished researcher, over 100 publications, originally based at Imperial College in the UK and has been in the Caribbean for the past 14 years. And that has been our gain at the University of the West Indies. And recently he has assumed the position of Deputy Principal at the University of the West Indies in Cape Hill. So I hope that that administrative position is not interfering too much with his outstanding technical work. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yes, I think it's having an impact. Okay, well, it's really my pleasure to be here amongst friends and supporters of the Caribbean. Peter neglected to say that I married a Barbadian, that's why I went to Barbados. And after that nice introduction, I'm just sorry that my wife wasn't here to hear it. So let me speak about our experience at CCAS, which is the Caribbean Cytometry and Analytical Society. So it's a not-for-profit organization, and we've been running workshops for 15 years, and as you can see, we're very good at begging for funding and support. And I put this up for a reason, because I think it is important to have a wide funding base when you operate in the Caribbean, because funding sources can be extremely vicarious, and we've lost a lot of substantial capacity, particularly in training in the Caribbean because of loss of funding. So we set up in 2006 as a charitable organization based in Barbados, but we have pan-Caribbean aims, and those are basically to improve access to antiretroviral treatment in the Caribbean by removing the technical and social barriers to care. I think it's fair to say that initially when we set up, particularly in the English-speaking Caribbean, there were significant technical barriers, basic techniques to do with flow cytometry and molecular diagnostics that were simply not available. And we focused mostly on technical side initially, but I think it's fair to say that we're much more interested in the social barriers to care right now. So the first two meetings of the technical training workshops, they were hosted by the Ministry of Health in Barbados. This is my good friend Dr. Aki Nabayomi, who was head of the government HIV lab in Barbados with some of our technicians. And you can probably see that slightly far away look in Akin's eyes. That's because he knew at that point that he was going to South Africa. And so he then persuaded me to form the Caribbean Cytometry and Analytical Society. And as he explained it to me later, it's not that I gave Clive a job he couldn't refuse, I gave him a job he couldn't understand. So we founded CCAS, and we've been hosting the workshops under that banner ever since. You can see that we've waxed and waned a little bit. We've had partners of various other groups that were active in the Caribbean, because we very much believe that in the Caribbean we must pull together and work together, because we're very atomized and too small to tackle issues if we don't do so. I just spotted Wendy Kitson-Piggott, who's from CMLF, and we've had very good collaborations with them over the years. But you will notice that from having a number of partners in the middle period, we did sort of shrink back down to just being us, and that is because various other entities simply pulled out or had their funding cut and ceased to exist. So we're based on the principle of volunteerism. We're a very small group of people. Two of my students, Andre standing, and in front of him is Andre Greenwich and Kim Quimby. Those are my PhD students. Flanked on either side are two wonderful ladies from the private sector who have given all their energy to CCAS, and in front of me is the president of CCAS, who is Vera Lane. She's a registered nurse, and she was the in the last cohort of the Caribbean Health Leadership Institute, which unfortunately also ceased to exist. We started in 2006, so one of the best decisions we had in 2006 was to have a CCAS Distinguished Lecture. And we started with a bang, because we got Rajon Kama, who established the first dedicated STI clinic in Montreal. And of course, he's very famous in the world of HIV and treatment. I know that he was very active in Haiti right at the beginning of the epidemic. And after having had Réjean as our first distinguished lecturer, we've had a great string of wonderful lecturers ever since. I can say that certainly the saddest lecture that we ever had was delivered by Eric van Hoort because he had to substitute for Joop Lange. 2 weeks before our meeting, he was killed, as you know, so that's a tremendous loss. That was in 2014. In 2008, we moved out of Barbados for the first time. It was great going to Suriname. We got lost in the jungles. You know how it is in Suriname. But what we immediately recognized right from 2008 was that we would take a whole team approach centered around the patient. And we learned this really from Bernard Liotard, who came to us from Martinique the year before. And this is what we advocated. And the evidence, the Swiss panel had already looked at the evidence, really spoke to this. So we have an integrated approach. And our conference is for everybody. Because everything needs to click. So program managers, the physicians, nurses, lab people, and counselors. And then the sort of sessions that we have reflect this mixture. We have everybody together in a plenary session. Everybody needs to know what the business of HIV care is and what their role in it is. We've had some milestone in St. Kitts in 2009. Very critically, we had our first laboratory network planning meeting. Many of the Caribbean islands are just too small to sustain molecular testing, so almost all of the OECS islands, 50,000 or less people, they can't have their own molecular diagnostic testing. We need to have a laboratory network, so we had our first planning meeting, which Wendy will probably chair. In 2011, we took a declaration on forming the laboratory network to COSOB, the CARICOM Ministers of Health meeting in Washington, and we established the laboratory network for the OECS countries. These are the small countries of the Eastern Caribbean. And so what you do when you have a workshop, you try to look at what your capacity building has been. So we trained around 1,500 people in the meantime, and we monitor the quality of our workshops and whether people like it, and they've always been very good. But what is the impact? Have these workshops made a difference? To be honest, that's a very difficult question to answer. We know that in terms of laboratory infrastructure, we believe we have made a difference. So we looked at the data that we collected as an organization over the last 10 years, and you can see that in this heat map, more and more laboratory infrastructure has been developed around HIV, but also critically using HIV as a vehicle to expand infrastructure beyond, so for other viruses. HIV is the first virus that most labs in the Caribbean could ever detect. Now we can detect lots of others. And incidentally, I have the paper on the front desk in which this is reported, which was a meeting from last year. We did a conference proceeding. I certainly know that these meetings have been critical in leading us to CAP accreditation for the government HIV lab in Barbados. Having these experts around, doing the gap analysis of your lab, encouraging you to go for international accreditation is absolutely critical. So you have a good lab, you have to use it. So we conducted the first cascade that was reported in the Caribbean, at least to my knowledge, and at the time we could only compare it to the US, to the CDC ecological analysis in the US. And this is very interesting. I think Lise would be interested in this. I have to say, Lise, I thought your presentation was outstanding. The time difference between these pillars is going to be vital in understanding how this epidemic continues to spread. You can see that in Barbados, our problem isn't so much the diagnosis, it's after the diagnosis. We lose almost half our people. Half the people who eventually end up in our clinic end up through the hospital with AIDS. So they're terrified of this disease, this horrible stigma and discrimination. That is the area where we have issues. I think in the meantime, we've gone up to around 40%, in the 40s in terms of our treatment-based care. So in the OECS, those smaller countries, they fed into our network. We do tests on viral load and infant diagnostics. And we were able to show over a 5-year period that the OECS countries also had an improvement in their viral load suppression. It wasn't quite to the level that we had achieved in Barbados, but this is very useful information for program managers in these smaller countries to encourage them that this particular laboratory network is important. It's helping the monitoring of these smaller countries. I had a very nice meeting with the CDC represented in Jamaica, and I'm sure that the funding will go back into this because unfortunately funding ran out and this network is not functioning anymore. We don't take credit for big achievements like elimination of mother-to-child transmission. All I would say is that we celebrate with our colleagues 3 of these countries in the OECS that achieved elimination of mother-to-child transmission. We provided the diagnostics for. We're really delighted for that. In terms of the, again, have the workshop made a difference? I looked at this and I do worry about this figure a little bit, which is what's going on in the Caribbean for adults and young people. You can see a great divergence between the genders, with women by and large having a decreased incident rate of new infections per year, but the men going in the opposite direction. But in terms of the Caribbean countries that I work with, we don't really know if this is relevant to us because our countries are so small. Most of them don't have spectrum analysis of our infection rate. This would be dominated by the big countries like Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba. We don't know if this is applying in our region. So I'll just end with a final piece of research which we did as CCAS. You've probably done systematic research, like I heard from Lise. You've done clinical research, like we heard from Bill Papp. Has anyone ever heard of research done because you're really angry? I did angry research. This particular statement infuriated me, and I decided that I would look at this. And this was a UNA statement saying that young girls in the Caribbean are at risk of exposure to HIV due to the common practice of maintaining relationships with older men. There was no evidence for this, and of course the supposition is that the young women are responsible for this. There wasn't the idea that why are older men maintaining relationships with younger women. Anyway, I looked at it in, we looked at it in Barbados, and we had a nationally representative surveys, and well, UNA was right. We do have high prevalence, very high prevalence of intergenerational sex. That's sex between women aged 15 to 19 and men 10 years or more older. But when you look at the risk factors for intergenerational sex, these are women who have low self-esteem, and the age of sexual initiation is a major risk factor for intergenerational sex. That's slightly slipped there. So right now, our organization has evolved further, and we now have the CPED Expert Summits since 2017 with the support of UNAIDS. So we like working with UNAIDS because they have wonderful, they give us wonderful reach, are very supportive in the communication of our findings. We just took together all of the great speakers that we had over the years. We had a wonderful meeting last year, and the paper is published on conference proceedings. During that, we decided that we needed to have a way for the public to understand better what it means to have the 1990. I think this is very abstract for most members of the public. And so we wanted to put people on the front foot. What's negative about HIV? How many people we stop from dying? So we want to put people on the front foot. And so The first one is obvious, it's test. The next second one is obvious as well, it's treat, and then we can defeat. Test, treat, defeat. Let's use this as a communication strategy. And PANCAP has adopted it. So the PANCAP is a very significant contributor to the last meeting, and Eddie Green, who is the special envoy for the Caribbean for HIV and AIDS, he uses it in all of his engagements as well. So this has been our contribution, and it's becoming involved in the Caribbean message to try and bring the public along as to what we're trying to achieve towards the elimination of AIDS. And I think the fear is what's driving discriminatory behavior. Fear is central to this. If we can overcome the fear factor, as Dr. Papp said, if you explain to a patient it's not a death sentence, most people still think this is a death sentence in the Caribbean. We have to get that message across. And then if you manage to get rid of the fear and provide information, I looked up at discrimination in the dictionary, and you know what? There are a couple of other definitions for discrimination which are actually beneficial. The ability to see or make fine distinctions, the gift of discernment. I think with information, I think we can achieve that. Okay, so here's our meeting in a few weeks' time. Anyone's welcome to attend, and thank you very much.
Telling us about the great work bringing the Caribbean people together in that annual meeting and the research. If I may add, I think it's not just the fear that bothers our people, but the shame that they feel about it. You know, they just have a sense of shame, and so we really have to affirm them. Do you have a question at the back? No? Questions? Go ahead.
I'm really wondering if we have data. Oh, first of all, Jacqueline McCartan from Aruba, first colleague. Do we have data on the stigma in the community? On the islands?
My community in Barbados, or in St. Lucia,
Yes.
or in St. Kitts, or in Antigua. Every country is going to be different. We have relatively good data from countries which are well researched, so we have good data from Puerto Rico, for example, in the Caribbean. Generally speaking, we have very poor data. What you see is this gap between diagnosis and coming in for treatment. Most of the Caribbean countries who report their cascades through us see the same thing. So our gap is right there between diagnosis and treatment. That's why something like test and treat on the same day is so effective.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Please go ahead, Joseph.
You just mentioned small islands,
Yes.
small communities, so maybe more difficult with stigma. Do you think this, the test and treat in one day would work there? It could be a challenge.
Well,
And it's very
we're not
small
doing very well
islands.
at the moment. We're not doing very well at the
No,
moment.
no, I know in the Dutch
So I
Caribbean
think,
also
I think
that.
it would have to work, because I think we just
Yeah.
abandon people when they go home. You know, they're in psychologically they're distraught, and you know, are we expecting them to just somehow come around and become all positive? I think we need to give them that hope right from the word go.
And sometimes I think that we as professionals also keep the stigma alive because we're doing so, we're protecting our patients not to get
So
stigmatized.
So true.
So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
think about that, how to do it.
Thanks for the excellent presentation. As we start from a laboratory perspective, there are a lot of changes also in the laboratory perspective of testing, as you mentioned, network. And now, as you see also here, there's a lot of effort being put in point of care testing for CD4, viral loads, things like that. How would you envision that to have an impact on our smaller islands, or small islands in the Caribbean?
Okay, well, I'm a bit of an expert in this because I used to be on the board of directors of one of these small companies which actually went bankrupt. Point of care testing has its problems because of the quality that's involved and sometimes the time that the machines take. So you have to have the right instrument for the right setting. So one of the things that makes our meeting quite popular is that we have all the diagnostic vendors together, and so people can see, oh, this is the right machine for me. So in the past, we've had complete mismatches of machines. Sometimes you had a high throughput machine in a small lab and they couldn't maintain the cost of service and maintenance and reagents, and it would just sort of collapse. Or you might have the opposite, where in a higher throughput setting you would have instruments that take 15 or 20 minutes per test, and so it's too slow. So point of care is an answer, providing that you have good quality assurance mechanisms, and that's something that our organization works on assiduously, and we've shown that it can work. You've got to get the right machine now.
One last question to that.
Good afternoon, Wendy Kitson from Caribbean Foundation. The fact that Clive just said that in fact point of care is quality assurance is testimony to the impact that we have on CCAS. I just wanted to say that to give real credit to Clive for being able to carry this conference that he did for the last, how many years, Clive?
It's
15 years, that's just amazing. He's been actually the driver behind it. And I want to really encourage people here. It's the only conference that I know of in the region that brings the integrated philosophy of integrated team together and puts the lab, surveillance program, etc. for discussion and brainstorming and solutions. Okay, so I really want to encourage everybody who's sitting here to attend the conference this year and thereafter.